Welcome to our webinar tonight, brought to you by Calgarys Child Magazine and Professional Parenting. And tonight we have the pleasure of bringing to you discipline without distress. Discipline is always a hot topic in parenting. I'm going to devote the next hour to it, and hopefully it will cover a lot of questions you have. So I'll introduce myself. I'm a bit of an idealist in that I'm a child development specialist. I'm a certified family life educator, and I am certified in the Brain Core Story, PET, Positive Discipline, and Alberta Health Services. I've also written 2 books. One book is called Parenting with Patience, and it's all about how to get calm, how to keep our calmness, how to get our kids calm. And then the second book is called Discipline Without Distress, and it's about what you do with the presenting problem while we are calm and how to solve those discipline issues without using any kinds of punishment. From babies to teenagers, we cover it all in that book. Absolutely. So I'm also certified in the Brain Core Story, which is a new initiative from the Palix Foundation on getting everybody on board with the same terminology and to promote the positive effects of health and brain development with informed knowledge of how brains operate biologically. I'm also a mom of 5 kids, so I am a realist. I do go to conferences, I do site research, but I am also a realist. I have 5 kids of my own. I am proud to say I have stopped all punishments by the time the oldest was 10. So most of my kids were raised without any punishments at all. No taking away cell phones or computer, no taking the doors off rooms, no timeouts, no consequences. And I think they've grown up to be pretty good kids. They range in age now from 15 to 26, and I am super proud of them. I think parenting is one of the toughest jobs in the world. And I think every parent should have a tip jar on their kitchen table. I did this once. I put a tip jar there, and I put a little sign, "Send Mom on a holiday." And wouldn't you know it, I got a few coins and chocolate bar. And then I put a wife's tip jar in the laundry room, and I put a $50 bill in there to set the precedence, but I didn't get any tips, so I don't do laundry anymore. And I think teachers, anybody who cares or interacts with children, definitely need a tip jar because it can be very trying and challenging at times, but it's also amazing rewards. So this webinar is copyright 2017-18, and it's intended only for viewing. Please don't share, load it, download it, and provide it to anyone. The webinar is not meant to replace advice from your healthcare professional and is only for educational use. And it does not necessarily reflect the opinions of Calgarys Child Magazine. So let's talk. What is positive discipline? You probably hear that term out there all the time, but really, what does it mean? Positive discipline is teaching. It's teaching kids without physical or emotional punishment. Plain and simple. Kids are young. They need our knowledge, our skills, our teaching, but we don't have to impart it with hurt and punishment. You can raise children absolutely non-punitively. Absolutely. And the ultimate goal of positive discipline is to enhance parent-child communication. So it's not so much controlling kids, making them listen. It's about setting the grounds for a great relationship. So you want a really good relationship, and from there comes communication. So you want to concentrate on building communication and a good relationship with children. To do that, you have to not just look at the behavior, but look at what the need or the feeling is underneath the behavior. So oftentimes parents, we are this ship on the ocean and we just see the tip of the iceberg and we think that child is behaving badly. But what we need to do is get into our little parenting submarine and look at what is holding up that tip of the iceberg. What does that child need? What are they feeling? And once you address the bottom of the iceberg, the behavior takes care of itself. We're raising kids in a new world, and a lot of this world is invisible to us. So we have to rely on good communication because we can't be in our kids' world to parent them. We need to rely on them to access us for help when they need it. And in order to do that, they can't fear us. They have to have good communication with us. So parenting now is taking that whole fear component out of the relationship. We don't want kids to be scared of us because they don't open up to adults that they're scared of. So we want a respectful, two-way, mutual communication relationship. 30 years ago, we used to use fear in our parenting. Kids would obey us based on our size, because we're bigger than them, and because they feared us, because we could punish them. Nowadays, we rely on our knowledge. We want to give them our experience. We want to have open communication, and respect runs both ways. So our parenting styles have changed in order to build those relationships without fear. And fear comes with punishment. We have to take the punishment out of the relationship. So what does that mean? A good parenting style has structure and it has nurturing. Structure has expectations. Nurturing has love and warmth. When a parenting style is high in expectations and low in warmth, it's called authoritarian. When it's low in everything, it's uninvolved. When it's high in warmth but low in expectations, it's permissive. And when it has good high structure and high warmth, it can be either authoritative or collaborative. What's the difference between those two? Well, authoritative is more along, I would like to know your opinion, but I make the decisions. And collaborative is more along, I would like to know your opinion, and I'll share my opinion, and together we'll come together and make the decision. So it depends on your age and your parenting style, but both of those styles have very good outcomes for children. So you want to be in the green zone about 70% of the time. Now, we know there are times you're going to be more authoritarian, such as your mother-in-law's over and you're feeling like things have to be ship-shape. So you're going to be a little more structured and ship-shape. And there are times you're going to be more permissive, like when you're going on holidays and you think, okay, really, does it matter if they don't get to bed by 8 o'clock? But the main point is try and be in the green zone about 70% of the time. That's good enough for consistency. Absolutely. So you want structure and you want nurturing. Nurturing is love, caring, kisses, hugs, cuddles, all that good stuff that parents do. Structure are routines, rituals, celebrations, expectations, chores, contributions, all those things that we have in place for kids to become very good citizens and nice people. So we often ask people, everything's connected. What are qualities you wish to see in your relationship with your future teenager? And what are some behaviors that are causing issues right now? And this is the list parents give us. So these are the things they want. And it's funny, when we teach classes all around the world, we get the same things from parents. They all want this with their teenager in their relationship. And a lot of them are still dealing with the stuff we're dealing with. The day-to-day, get to bed, go out the door in time, eat vegetables, listen to me, wait, stop screaming, don't hit your brother. Those are all super, super common behaviors. So it's nice to have a roadmap of where you want to go, and it kind of depends on what you're going to do with these things now. Is it going to get you where you want to go here? Those are questions you have to ask yourself. So short-run goals are things like you want to stop the behavior, make the child listen, and sometimes, if we're really honest, we're angry, and that's probably why a lot of us yell. We want to relieve that anger. This was when I put my 2 sons down for a nap, and look what they were doing. They weren't napping. When we're tired and we've had a stressful day and things like this happen, yes, we have a short fuse, we lose it. But that's okay. The more we get practiced on getting a grip, the better it will be. But don't worry. We're not perfect if we, again, use our authoritative or collaborative parenting style. 70% of the time, we are doing good. Super good. So these are short-run goals. But will they get us to where we want to go? Back to that list of communication, respect, wanting to spend time with each other. If we relieve our anger in not respectful ways, will that get us back to here? Maybe not. We want to concentrate on our long-run goals, creating connection and belonging in the family, teaching our kids self-control, and building our bonds with our children. Now, there's a myth out there that people say you have to make kids feel bad in order to be good. But the truth is, children who feel good and respected actually do behave better in the long run, short of child development milestones. But generally, as kids get into the teen years, if they've been respected, they actually treat other people with immense respect. Research. The research out there shows there is no long-term benefits to punishments. There is no research that shows punishments enhance the parent-child relationship. None. Zero. There is a lot of research out there that shows punishment interferes with learning. It can create worse behavior. It teaches kids how to punish others, especially siblings. It causes them stress and maybe toxic stress, and teaches kids to hide mistakes rather than learn how to deal with them. And it risks that parent-child relationship because it adds fear into the relationship. Okay, so why stop yelling, shaming, consequences, and spanking? Main reason is, if you stop it, it builds relationships. So let's talk about anger. Anger is normal, super normal in parenting. Every parent feels anger. Every child feels anger. It's okay. It's okay to feel anger. It depends on what we do with it. Now, there's also, everybody has stress. There are actually 3 kinds of stress. There's positive stress, which is great. It's motivational and builds resiliency. So, for example, I knew I was doing this webinar tonight and it was creating positive stress for me, but it motivated me to actually prepare it, make the slides better, and then when it's done, I'm going to go, yay, I did it, it's done. So that's positive stress. For a child, that could be attending a birthday party for the first time, this week starting school. A lot of kids have not experienced that and they're worried and scared, but after a couple of weeks, they're like, yes, I did it, I can do this. It's great. It builds resiliency. Tolerable stress is nasty stress, but it gets better. It subsides and it's buffered by caring people, and that does no long-term damage to the brain either. Toxic stress is tolerable stress that is prolonged, unpredictable, and not buffered by caring people. Toxic stress can actually change childhood brain architecture. It produces cortisol and adrenaline, and when those things are ongoing, they don't subside, it can really hurt the brain. So we want to encourage positive stress, we want to buffer tolerable stress, we want to avoid toxic stress. So you have to ask yourself, okay, is what my child experiencing in stress, is it regular or rarely? So if you yell at your child every hour, every day, regularly, that may not be good. But if you lose it once in a while, you yell, that's okay. Kids are resilient, they can handle that. It's fine. Don't hurt yourself up over it. Okay, let's look at differences between discipline and punishment. Discipline means to teach. Punishment means to hurt. Discipline, when you're teaching, can connect the relationship. A good example of that is changing the environment by childproofing. That is setting kids up for success. It's positive. It helps them to learn. Punishment disconnects the relationship because you're introducing fear. Discipline is long-term learning, and a lot of it is proactive. About 90% of good discipline is prevention and 10% correction, whereas punishment is promoting short-term learning, and it teaches kids don't get caught because the results are nasty, and it's often reactive. We react to something. We don't look at what can we teach the child for the future. So discipline is to teach. It's to give guidance and information and helping kids to solve life problems. Punishment is to hurt. It's an action that's painful or humiliating that a more powerful person does to a less powerful one, hoping to produce a change of behavior. Very often it does backfire. And as kids get older, as you can see by this graph, parents run out of punishments. They actually run out of rewards too. But this kind of shows at 18, lost all control. Now, spanking has issues. There are a lot of problems with spanking, a lot of research that shows it promotes aggression. It raises the risk of all these things. I'm not going to read them out because you can see them here. It doesn't necessarily mean that these things are going to happen to a child who is regularly spanked. It just means that the risk of these things happening goes up. Let's look at another popular tool, time out. In the 1980s, time out was a discipline tool used by certain psychologists, and they decided it worked for their children who had ADHD, and they wrote books saying this will work for every child. And it became very popular because at the same time, a lot of organizations were telling parents don't spank. So parents, when they're angry, need to do something. To tell parents not to do anything is very difficult. So parents grasped onto the idea of timeout, thinking, okay, this is good, I'm not spanking, this is something I can do. But we also know timeout has risk factors too. And here are some of them. I'm not going to read these out because you can read the screen, but they're very interesting ones. Time out doesn't work for a lot of kids, and especially spirited temperament children. And parents know that. So it is often not a problem with children, it's a problem with the tool. Here's another tool that's popular, consequences. Now, children don't have enough brain power to understand consequences until they're age 6 or 7. But we tend to do it to younger kids. It tends to be a light type of punishment, but it's designed to hurt rather than solve problems. Parents set them up, and eventually kids get smart and they know they're not choosing, the parents are imposing. They're not respectful. I wouldn't give it to my partner. I wouldn't give consequences to my friend, my sister, my neighbor, my coworker. So why would I do it to my children? They're not real life issues. Real life issues are problems to be solved with mutual respect between two people. Just remember the golden rule. Would you want that done to you? So do unto others as you would want done to you. What's the difference between consequences and problem solving? Consequences tend to be one solution, usually parent imposed, and designed to hurt in order to teach. Problem solving is many solutions. It's usually the parent and child's ideas brainstormed together, and it solves the problem. Now, with the internet, we have a new source of discipline tool called internet shaming. This can be especially problematic. It's more public than any other type of punishment, and it lasts forever. It destroys self-esteem. It's permanent, and it can be copied, and it is not good modeling of digital citizenship, which we want our kids to acquire. And basically is cyberbullying of our children. It is never appropriate. There are benefits of not using punishments. There's less hostility, rebellion, attitude, and power struggles. The child learns to access parents because they're not scared. There's less stress on them, and hence less illness. And they have more responsibility over fate control. They have better social and life skills because they now are practiced in communication, problem solving, and conflict resolution. So I've talked about what not to do. Let's talk about what to do. And I call this the very super easy 3-step model. It's outlined in the book, Parenting with Patience. Turn frustration into connection with 3 easy steps. So the 3 easy steps are, first, get yourself calm. Timeout is for you. It's not for your kids, it's for you. The best way to teach kids about timeout is to model it. Take it yourself. Timeout is a beautiful skill. It gets us out of a lot of intense situations. So show your kids how to do timeout by using it yourself. Secondly, get your child calm. Again, that's that airplane example, right? Put the oxygen mask on yourself first. Get yourself in a space where you can help your child. Get your child calm. And that's what we call time in. Time together is solving the problem, figuring out solutions that work best for everyone in the future. You're putting a lot of time into this, but it's positive time. It teaches kids real relationship and life skills, things they need forever. Teaching kids punishment doesn't serve them any good in the long run. Okay, let's look closely at step 1. So that's about you. Getting yourself calm. Timeouts for you. So I just want to remind everyone, again, we're recording this, so I'm going to leave questions to the end. So here's an example from my house. My child wanted to eat some chips, and we were 10 minutes away from dinner, and I said, nope, no chips. We're about to eat dinner. Sorry, you can't have them. Well, this child was mad. So he left, and I continued making dinner. And after a while, I heard this bang, 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 bang on the floor. And I thought, what is going on up there? So I put down my cooking, and I, like any good parent, I'm going to go investigate what's going on. And I get upstairs, and this child opened the bag of chips. I don't know how he got them, but he threw them all over his rug, and he crunched every last chip into the carpet. What a mess. Now, if you're like most parents, you look at the scene and you are livid with anger. Livid. Nothing angers parents more than deliberate disobedience. And that's when we tend to pull out the big guns. We pull out the consequences. Some parents spank. I was so angry when I saw this. And it was one of my better parenting moments, which is why I'm telling you about it now, is that I said in my very loud voice an I statement. I said, I am so angry, I'm going to go take a time out. And I turned around and walked downstairs, and I was crying. I was so frustrated. I called a friend and I vented. You betcha, vented, which was good. So the beauty about that is I modeled taking a time out before I hurt anybody or hurt anything. And that is what kids need to see, right? Take care of myself first before I deal with anything else in the situation. So parent timeout is great. We have to separate our anger from our discipline, because when we keep them together, we issue consequences like, you're never going to get the computer for another 30 years. And we know we're never going to follow through on that. Absolutely not. So calm down first, think about it, take care of yourself first, and then decide what your discipline is going to be. A lot of things, too, is prevention. What are your triggers? For me, it's mess, whether it's chips on the carpet or messes. And I understand that kids are not, I mean, they're little, they make mistakes, right? They are going to make messes, but that is a trigger for me. So here's some calm down tools, and I outline these in the book, Parenting with Patience. There's about 70 ways, which I call the yes list. What can we do when we're angry and we want to express our anger instead of spanking and yelling? These are things we can do. So in this case, I talked to a friend and I had a good cry. So it was more these ones, more nurturing ones. The yellow ones are more physical, more creative. The blue ones are more visual. It depends. Some of these work for some people, some don't work. So timeout goes by many names for children. It's called quiet time, alone time, naughty step, reflection time. But it's better for parents to take a timeout. Stop, breathe, what do I need? Ask yourself, what do I need right now? I need to get calm. What is good? A lot of ideas from parents are in the book, Parenting with Patience. My favorite one right now is to go into the bathroom, scream and yell into the toilet, and flush it away. So it's a nice visual. So take your time out, get calm yourself. It's a positive life skill that you want to model to your kids. Be the person you want them to be. How do you take your time out when you have children underfoot? That's a little harder, but you can do it. You can put on a movie for them. You can put in an iPhone music. You have to psychologically imagine a timeout. Make sure the kids are safe, occupied, and just have some time for you. Make a cup of tea, phone a friend, read a newspaper, read Facebook. Get a timeout that is fulfilling to you, and you can lose the anger. So I also use what I call an I statement. And an I statement is different from a you statement in that it tells how I feel. I feel angry when I said no to the chips because I want you to eat your dinner. So an I statement lets the other person know how you feel with respect. Okay, so step 2 is get your child calm. And that is time in. So what are your children's triggers? Let's go back to the chip episode. So what happened here now is one son shares a room with the other son. So the other son comes up and sees all these greasy chips on the floor and says, "What?" And now the two kids are fighting. They're both high arousal anger. They need help to calm down. So what do we do now? Time in. So time in. So what I did was I grabbed both boys by the arm. We went downstairs. We sat on the couch, one on each side of me, and I picked up a book from the coffee table and started reading aloud. After about 10 minutes, they calmed down. They weren't poking at each other, looking at each other from around me. They were actually listening to the story. So that helped both calm down because you can't do any teaching in the moment of anger. People just don't hear. People have to be calm to hear teaching, including kids. So I built some literacy. I helped them calm down. It was all good. So remember, there's no limits on feelings, but there are limits on behaviors. So both boys can feel angry, but they can't hit each other. They can't physically fight. So timeouts for us, time in is for the child. One thing too is don't give power to children's anger. So if your child is angry and making a mess, like throwing something or kicking something, try and get them calmed down first. Don't storm in and say, "Hey, pick that up." You want to just let them calm down, and then when they're calm, you can say, "Okay, let's clean up your anger mess," and make sure they do most of it because they'll make better choices next time. Now, one thing you need to be clear, children misbehave because they have limited brain development or they have a need or feeling. That is particularly true. So once you become a submarine parent and look at what that child needs or feeling, you can understand a bit better what that child needs. It's not a discipline issue, it's a valid need. So let's look at young children's anger first. Why are young children aggressive? Super common. Young kids hit, push, bite, and throw because they can't use their words yet. They don't have that verbal ability to say, I'm really angry because you took my toy and your turn is a lot longer than my turn and I'm just feeling a little unfair about that. They don't have those words. So what do? They push, they grab, they bite, they throw. That's normal. It doesn't mean it's okay. It means you address it, but you don't punish it. So redirect them to a self-calming tool or a new activity. And the tools for children are the same as adults. All these can work for kids too, and a few more. You might have an anger beanbag chair or an anger pillow or an anger tube to breathe in, or you could teach them to hammer their hands on the spot or stomp or drum or jump, or maybe they just need a hug. After they're calmed down, you can ask them to draw their feelings. And if they're biting, maybe give them something to bite. You can't say, "No, don't bite." Say, "Here, bite this instead." Temper tantrums are super common for the ages of 1 to 4. Temper tantrums are communication and body language. Kids don't have the words yet, so they scream, lie on the floor, thrash, totally normal. So when you say no, You're the gatekeeper to what they want, and tantrums are their natural reaction. It's normal. It's all good. They have a life. So at some point, you can try and prevent. Maybe your child's hungry or tired. Maybe fix that first. Don't give in to their requests, but just try and fix that. Now they're escalating. Okay, you know it's coming. Move them to a quiet spot. It's going to peak. Wait it out. Stay calm. And then once they've peaked, they come down and validate their feelings. Say to them, you were angry when you couldn't have that chocolate bar in Walmart. And finally solve the problem. What are you going to do next time? Maybe you're not going to shop at 4 o'clock when they're hungry and you just need to get an item on the way home. So temper tantrums come in 2 types. The spillover tantrum from too much stimulation and just try and take them away from that. And the power struggle from their wants or needs not met. If you've said no, stay with your no. Put up with a tantrum. It's what you got to do. Don't take it personally. So hitting, throwing, pushing, and biting. Again, we talked about those tools. Redirect them. After you've helped them calm down, redirect over, and over again. Temperament plays a big part into this. Some children are easygoing, some are slow to warm, and some are very high need spirited. 40% of all children are born easygoing, 15% are born spirited. Spirited children tend to have these temperament traits. They're very persistent, they're so sensitive, they're not adaptable, they're very intense, they're not regular, they're very active, they have mostly a negative first reaction, and they're very uneven moods, which can present challenges when you're parenting them. They need patience, they need flexibility, they need very, very little absolute priority rules, so pick your battles. They respond much better to problem solving and not punishment, and they need your encouragement and understanding. And they need your protection from other people. Your child is unique if they're a spirited child. For older children's anger, validate their feelings. So say, I hear you're really upset because I said no to the sleepover. It's okay to feel that way. Give them space to work it out. Reconnect with them after they've calmed down. And when you're in a moment of calm, ask them what they would like you to do when they're angry. Do they want hugs? Do they want space? Do they want someone to vent to? Help them understand what they need. It helps to connect with them and then direct them to clean up whatever. And they always need hugs. They need to know they are a fully functioning person. Anger, frustration, happiness, they can feel all their feelings. A lot of time, older children's anger is couched in attitude. So it's your job to help them choose the I statement. The statements on the left are attitudes. The statements on the right are I statements. So help them rephrase it and say, here's what I'd like to hear. Can you say it this way? And then hopefully give in to what they say because they have requested it. But it's important to listen to their feelings. Okay, the last step is step 3. This is teaching. This is solving the problem, and this is time together. In the Discipline Without Distress book, I list 135 tools, but we don't have time to do that all night tonight. But back to our chip episode. So I got calm with time out. I got the kids calm with time in. Now we still have a problem. Actually, we have 3 problems here. The first problem is the mess. Okay, so if I just gave my son a quick spank and let him off the hook, he wouldn't learn how to resolve his problem. So this is the long and hard way. I taught him how to clean up. So I gave him the vacuum. He was only 4, so he did a good job for a 4-year-old. I taught him how to use carpet cleaner and clean up the grease, and he learned a valuable skill. The next problem was, what's he going to do the next time he's angry instead of throwing chips all over his room? So we came up with some ways he could go downstairs to the beanbag chair and he could kick that when he was mad. Children absolutely need that yes list. What are things they can do with their anger? The third problem was, what do we do the next time he's hungry and it's 10 minutes away from dinner? So we decided together, we came up with some ideas together that we would have a little shelf in the fridge for him to pick food from that was okay for me, nutritious for him to eat 10 minutes before dinner. We solved both our problems. So discipline is teaching self-control too. Discipline is teaching kids, moving them from outer control to inner control, self-control. We all know people who have amazing discipline. They study instead of partying. They work instead of play. They go to the gym instead of posting on social media, right? They smile at people who cut them off driving instead of swearing at them. They eat vegetables instead of cake. What's wrong with those people? They have amazing discipline. We're not all there, but we have differing controls of that. And that is related to our differing levels of executive function, that part of our brain that allows us to think critically, make decisions, and weigh out consequences. So kids develop in 4 ways: physical, cognitive, social, and emotional. And let's talk a little bit about development. So under age 5, if you tell a child to do something, they listen or comply about 40% of the time. 60% of the time, they're not going to listen and they're not going to comply. And that is normal development. Absolutely normal. That is not a discipline issue. That's a development issue. Absolutely related to brain development. Let's talk about executive function. It has 4 components. It has working memory. So for this example, let's imagine 2 children playing a game of chess. Can a 3-year-old play chess? No, but a 7-year-old can play chess. And this is why. Because working memory involves the ability for children to remember that the queen moves one way, the rook moves a different way, and to hold that in their memory while they're thinking up moves. Young children under age 5 don't have that capacity. Another component is focus, being able to filter distractions. So for these children to concentrate on the game and not look at what's going on outside is a measure of executive function. Self-control, the ability to take turns and wait for the other person to take a turn and not throw the board when they're losing. That is executive function. And planning, plan B. Let's say this child now takes away his horse and he had been planning to move his horse. Now what's he going to do? What's his plan B? That ability to think with planning doesn't come until about age 6 or 7. The area of self-control, so you can see from 0 to age 3, very little self-control with children. You're just doing damage control. You're protecting them, keeping them safe. And then even at age 4, not a whole lot of self-control, but a huge leap to about age 6. Look at that. And that's why kids don't start mandatory school until age 6. They need a measure of self-control to be able to put their needs aside and think of others' needs. So this is not discipline, this is brain development. And just as you wouldn't punish a child who is, for example, in a wheelchair, that they can't go upstairs, You wouldn't punish a 4-year-old for not having self-control enough to put their needs aside and put the parents' needs first. It's not appropriate. Okay, so that is executive function. So there's a big leap here around age 6. There's another big leap here in the teen years. And by about age 25, it peaks. Brain is really high primed for all these 4 domains. Let's go through the different stages and let's look at appropriate discipline tools in these last 10 minutes. So babies are in a stage of building attachment and trust. They cannot think manipulatively. They're not thinking, if I cry, that nice lady comes in and picks me up from the crib, so I'm going to cry some more, so she might take me into her bed and I'll be nice and warm and cozy. They are not thinking that way. They don't have those higher order cognitive thinking skills. They're thinking sensory input, output. I'm cold, cry. I'm hungry, cry. I'm lonely, cry. That's all they do. So your job is to build that attachment and trust that they know they're going to have their needs met. Yes, we talk about baby discipline because there are studies out there that show under the age of 1, parents start thinking about smacking their child's fingers when they touch things. So we have to talk about that. So best tool here is attachment. Meet your baby's needs, meet your needs, get some time off for you, and learn about child development. Some really good baby tools that actually work in the later years too are parent timeout. When you've had it, you're done, take a timeout. You come back really refreshed. Substitution. As your child reaches for something they're not supposed to, substitute or distract or redirect to something that is acceptable. And prevention, childproof your house all the way to age 5. And sometimes I use prevention a lot too. There's things you can do in your home environment to prevent problems. Okay, young toddler stage is 6 to 18 months, and brain development works. It comes from the brainstem and works up, back of the brain to the front of the brain. This is the last part to develop. This is the first part. So in babies, this is very sensitive. Their whole job here is to explore, look at their environment, build security and trust that they're going to be safe, and they're in that safety, they can explore, and they attach to a wonderful adult, and that's where separation anxiety begins because they don't want to leave that wonderful adult. Older toddlers, the part of the brain more sensitive now is that inner brain, the amygdala, the hippocampus. This is the feeling part of the brain, very sensitive. It's also sensitivity resurrects in the preteen years, around age 13, 12. By then they have the words though. So, and feelings. So they have emotional, intense feelings, but not quite the words to express themselves. So this is a stage that they often hit, bite, push. These are certain characteristics of this stage. It's a word of no, very little self-control, short attention span, no logic, and they like to explore. So best discipline throughout this stage is action. Yes, childproof, childproof, childproof. Make sure they're totally supervised, keep them safe, childproof. If they're doing something they're not supposed to, redirect. You can teach, you can say, no, we don't pull the dog's tail, we pat gently, but you're teaching over and over and over again. You're repeating your teaching so that those brain pathways are getting reinforced. When you teach 40 times, by the time they're about 7, 8, they start remembering on their own because those brain pathways have been reinforced. Now, I have 135 tools in my book for all these ages, but I'm just going to go through the 10 best because we're limited in time. So keep in mind too, don't project. A lot of parents go by what I call the snowball effect. They think, oh, if I don't nip it in the bud here when they're 2 or 3, they're going to be hitters and biters when they're 16. That is so not true. At 16, they're a different age and stage. They'll have lots of practice to handle their anger without hitting and biting. Even if you don't address it now, you're going to have many, many chances to teach when they have enough brain power for it to stick. And that's mostly in the school age years. So remember, when they're 2, not a whole lot of brain power and self-control. When they're 8, yes, good years to teach there with respect, with firm and kind directions. And then when they're 22, you have an awesome relationship and they take you to Italy. Preschooler stage, 3 to 5 years. They're starting to think, so the brain here now is getting more developed here. They're starting to think, imagine, question. A lot of fears are erupting, a lot of imaginative play, playmates outside the family. It's really, really good. But keep in mind, they're only complying about 40% of the time. So these are common characteristics of preschoolers. Lovely, lovely kids, lovely stage. They're really coming into their own little people. But again, that self-control, very limited. Remember, executive function starts about 6, 7, big leap there. So big tools here are action and talk. So again, you can't bark commands from another room and expect your child to listen. You have to get up, go to them and say, here's what I need you to do. I need you to put your coat on. So if you said no, stick with your no. Put up with a tantrum. It's okay. You'll both survive. And start introducing problem solving. Teach your child how to negotiate and problem solve. School agers. Now, this part of the brain's sensitive, logical, thinking concretely, tangible. So they're still thinking about a lot of things, understanding other people's needs, but still it has to be familiar things in their environment. They can't think abstractly yet. In a good relationship, they'll start complying about 60% of the time. These are common characteristics of school agers. From 6 to 9 years, they're still black, white, concrete thinkers. Heading into the tween years, becoming more peer focused, a little more attitude, worries, but all good stuff. Best discipline tool here is talk and then action. So where preschoolers, I said you got to act and then talk, now you can move in, talk, and then back it up with action. So you can ask them, get your coat, do the dishes, do your laundry. Yes, they can do laundry at age 10. And if they don't do it, back it up, help them with action, show them how to do it. So biggest tools here are modeling. They are watching you. Everything you do, they are modeling. Listen and validate their feelings. Use your I statements and move into problem solving. Teenagers, the front of the brain, they're starting to think abstractly, and again, that feeling back again. So, but in a good relationship, 80% of the time, if you ask them to do something, they'll do it. Here are some characteristics of teenagers. These are early teens and late teens. In terms of brain development, teenagers tend to have a heightened pleasure centers. So their need for dopamine feeds tends to overrule their prefrontal cortex, that ability to put the brakes on risky behavior. So they still need their parents as that external brain putting on the brakes. So they absolutely critically need a good relationship with parents here, and that is why you don't want to punish. You want to negotiate big time. Number one skill, according to The Economist in October 2014 for jobs, is problem solving. The rest of the world will punish your child, but only you have a vested interest and a relationship with them to teach them how to problem solve, negotiate, and deal with relationship skills. That is what you're putting into their bank. So problem solving is not you against me, it's you and me against the problem. We are on the same team. Let's work together. So you look at the problem together. Let's say it's homework. And you look at your needs. Your needs is you don't need the teacher calling every night saying the homework's not done. Your child's needs are maybe they find they need some downtime when they come home from school and they're not getting that. So then you sit down, you come up with some ideas together. What can we do that everybody gets their needs met? And you get your child throwing some ideas out there. Then you go through and then you evaluate all the needs or the ideas. And then you pick one or two or three or 10. You write them down and then you do it. And then you set a date, 2 weeks or a month, and you say, is it working? And that is what problem solving is. It's very, very simple. But it takes time, but it's good time. It inspires creativity. Here's an example. Can we design a dresser made of 20 working drawers of unequal sizes to fit in a round space? Most people would say, what? Can you? And creativity is, yes, you can. So we need kids to think outside the box. We need them to think of problem solving. And that involves a lot of discussions and a lot of conversations. That's why you want to take punishment out of the parenting relationship. You want to open them up. You want to have free flow of conversations. And that is where you're conveying a lot of your values and your teaching. This slide kind of shows how when your child's born, you have 100% control over your child. But by the time they're 18 or 19, the law says you have zero control. None. Zilch. And halfway there, about age 9, is the middle part. And if you have a 13-year-old, you're 2/3 of the way through your parenting. But in a good relationship, what you lose in control, you gain in influence. And influence is amazingly powerful. It goes with your child when you don't. So it's that little voice in their ear that says, would my parents be happy with this? Is this a decision they think I should make? And it helps them make good decisions. Your influence will grow and grow and grow and keep with them. And that is what you want to cultivate. If you use punishments and rewards too much, you will not grow that influence. You really do. It grows with age and respect. Okay, and then the last part of the brain is just solidifying the myelination of the prefrontal cortex. And that's what we call emerging adulthood. And this is where adults gain in reason, planning, critical thinking, and breaks over that dopamine hit. So everything is a stage. To wrap up, sometimes the best discipline tool is a hug. It's a good place to start. It's good modeling. It starts from a place of love. Everyone calms down, and then you can start talking and negotiating. So I'm just going to skip through this a bit just because I want to end on time. So keep in mind that everything's a stage. Your child at 3, what they're doing now at 3 is not going to be the same as your child at 13. They're in a much different brain development stage. So when your child's hitting and biting at 3 and tantruming, very normal stuff. They're not going to be doing it at 13, no matter what you do to address it. Okay, we're just going to move on. So just to recap, some discipline tools for 3 and under when they have little self-control is supervision, child-proof, routines, distraction, validating feelings, I statements, modeling, giving attention, and when all else fails, you can move them. 4 and over, they're gaining self-control, so it's more communication-based, offering choices, problem-solving, make it a game, discussion, consequences, natural consequences, not imposed, and sometimes just accepting it's a stage they're going to move out of. So keep in mind, get yourself calm first, timeouts for you, get your child calm, time-ins for them, solve the problem, use time together and problem solve. Keep in mind that building a relationship involves 2 people, you and your child. You are in control of your relationship. You have the vested interest to teach them really good relationship skills. Okay, I'm going to end with this poem, and then we'll open it up to questions. This is the parent's affirmation of imperfection. It's perfectly okay for me to be imperfect. This includes not being a perfect parent. Excuse me. This means it's okay. I've already made lots of mistakes as a parent. Yay! And it's okay. I'll make other mistakes in the future. What's not okay is for me to pretend that I'm perfect and hide my mistakes from myself. Instead, I'll catch my mistakes with a smile rather than a kick and learn what they have to teach me. That way, I won't make the same mistakes too often, and I'll never be a perfect parent. And that's okay, because my goal is excellence, not perfection. And the author of this is unknown, but it's a lovely little poem. Remember, you'll never lose your influence in connected relationships. So if you have any questions from this webinar, feel free to email me. I'm at jarnall@shaw.ca, or come to our website at professionalparenting.ca, or you can access us through Calgarys Child Magazine. So at this point, I'm going to just shut it off, and we will take questions. Thank you for sharing your evening with us tonight. We hope this was helpful, and stay tuned next month for next month's webinar, the 3rd Thursday of every month.